Hello, I'm here by the sea. Good morning, it's April 3rd here in beautiful spring Nova Scotia, and then today I'm going to plant some squash in my tulip garden. Hi, it's Greg Otten here with maritimegardening.com. Hello, it's Greg Otten here with maritimegardening.com. Just you and me and the flies here. And I got some beans here, and it's time to plant some beans, and I thought I'd do a video on planting things with a mulch like this. I get a lot of questions about how do you plant things with all that mulch, and it really depends on what you're planting and how small the seed is and how vigorous the shoot is. When you're planting things like beans or squash or whatever, it's probably the easiest because you don't have to worry about their ability to push through. They can do it. So I got some beans here provided by my sponsor, Vessi Seeds. These are called Aldrin beans. They're like a fast-growing bush bean. I find where I live here, I don't get the most ideal growing season, and bush beans are really the name of the game. I like to plant some pole beans. I might even put some down the center of this, but tonight I'm just going to hammer it with the bush beans. They'll grow a lot quicker, and you know, pole beans are always iffy. You grow the pole beans, and they start bearing beans in late August, early September. But you never know. You never know if the frost's going to come ridiculously early and just shut the whole thing down. So, you know, if you have a gentle fall, you might be getting pole beans up into October. Or they could just start producing and be shut down. So the advantage of the bush bean is that they bear all their beans very quickly and in August, and you're going to get a full yield. You're going to be inundated and almost overwhelmed with beans for a short amount of time. That's a drawback. But if you're somewhere where there's a short growing season, you want to get as much beans as you can out of your land, sort of thing. So you got to balance those things off. If you put all your bets on pole beans, and pole beans will bear beans for longer, and they'll bear a lot of beans. But if your season is cut short by an early frost, you're not going to get much out of your pole beans, or your indeterminate, your long, tall beans. So if you don't have that certainty, and certainly I don't have it here. I mean, it's I guess almost mid-July now, and we just stopped getting. We had our last frost last week, right? First or second week of June. Sorry, I'm using the wrong words here. It's mid-June. Sorry, not July. It's mid-June, and we just stopped getting frost a week ago. So you just never know what's going to happen, especially these days with climate change being the way it is. You never know exactly what's going on. Things just seem to be incredibly out of whack, depending on where you are. It could be extremely hot or unseasonably cold. It seems like here, where I live, we're getting the cold end of things, and there's many explanations that might discuss that. Perhaps a good topic of discussion for another episode. But anyway, I'm planting beans tonight. I think we're done with the frost, and it's time to put these in. So I thought I'd do a short video on how to do that when you got a heavy mulch like this. This garden's just been sitting like this all season. It's I don't know what it is, second week of June right now, and you look closely, you'll see there's hardly any weeds growing here. People always talk about hay. Does hay cause weeds? There's usually some weed seeds in the hay. It's not straw, so it's got lots of seeds. But if you keep it on heavy, they don't seem to germinate. And I've listened to certain viewers comment saying, "Oh, that's got a herbicide in it." I think it really depends on where you live and what kind of hay you're dealing with. I would say talk to the person you get your hay from. I don't have that problem here. This is just wild hay. There's no stuff, there's no herbicide all over my hay. I don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. If you're somewhere where that sort of thing is legal by your laws, you probably want to find out from the person you get your hay from if it's been coated or treated with some sort of herbicide. I would also pressure your local politician to make that illegal, because that's crazy. Okay. Anyway, so here I'm going to plant some beans and have a watch. All right. The first thing is you got to make a space. So this is a good, I don't know, 6 inches deep. So you got to make a little space, right? So I'm just pushing the hay aside to make a line. And there's no need to really work the soil too much. And this soil has had nothing done to it. Last fall I put some hay down. That's all the work I've done to the soil. So I'm just going to grab some of these beans, and all I do is just stick them in with my thumb about an inch deep. Every 3 inches I stick one in the ground. And that's it. I just have them on the end of my thumb and jam them in. That's it. And I just smooth it over a bit, and that line's done. And every, I don't know, about 7 inches, I'll do another row like that. Alright, so let me adjust the camera here for the next row. I think we're done with our frost. I mean, the frost was ridiculously, there's a bit of a weed there. I'm just going to throw it on top of the mulch. That's all you do. When you find a weed, you pull it and throw it on top of your mulch, and its roots will die, and problem solved. You just want to make a little line about 3 inches wide, I would say, where the soil is exposed. Once the beans come up, you push the soil back. You want to have as little soil exposed as possible so that it doesn't dry out. Now you see how quick and easy that is? You just stick them on the end of your thumb like that and jam them in about every 3 inches. And some of these will get taken out by slugs and some of them won't. And I will use a slug bait to mitigate that. But really only need that for a short period of time. Once the beans are reasonably mature, they're fairly slug resistant. It's when they're young that they're vulnerable. Anyway, this is a good example of no-till gardening and how simple it is, right? I mean, this I've done no work to the soil at all. All I did was put hay on it last fall, and it's just been sitting here waiting to have something planted in it since the soil thawed. There's hardly any weeds here to speak of, and I don't need to till it or hoe it or work it or weed it or do anything. All I got to do is plug in my seeds, and in about a week these will be up and growing. Now here's a weed. I just pulled a clump of grass. You just lay that on top like that. You might want to get some of that soil out of there. We just lay it on top like that. Right, expose the roots to the air, and it'll just die. And now it's mulch. It's that simple, right? It doesn't. Weeds aren't a problem. When you do find them, you just add them to your mulch equation. Not a big deal. And the reason we have this mulch on here, as I've said many times, is to feed the soil and to maintain constant moisture levels. That's what it does. Eliminates your need for fertilizer, reduces your need for constant watering, just makes the whole exercise of keeping a garden and growing your own food so much easier, you know. Oh, there's a big old spider there, and there's a worm. The mulch provides a habitat for all kinds of living things. Some beneficial and some not so beneficial. Slugs tend to like the mulch, so there is that. But there's ways you can deal with that. I tend to find slug bait to be a good way to deal with that. I'm sure there's people that don't like that, but I use a type of slug bait that's relatively benign from an environmental point of view. There's different kinds. Some are much more toxic than others. The one I use breaks down to constituents that aren't too big a deal. So I find that to be an acceptable compromise based on the way I view things. So depending on how you come at your gardening and what you value and so on, you have to figure that out for yourself. I place a high value on things being organic and safe and non-toxic. I feed my family with this food, so I don't do these things lightly. You'd be surprised how this grass does not blow away. And I thought I'd do this whole video pretty much in real time to show you how little time it takes to put in something like beans. Right? It doesn't have to be a big deal. I mean, I've had a long day. Just finished having supper with my family, and my kids are in bed, and I had about half an hour to go do some work in my garden, and I thought I'd put these beans in. And I think this whole bed will probably be planted in about 15 minutes. And as a result of that 15 minutes, I'll, starting sometime in late July, I'll get beans, and this garden will bear beans for, I don't know, a few months. Probably the month of August and some of September. And I'll get a lot of beans out of it. So totally worth spending 30 minutes. There's another weed there, just put it on top like that. No big deal. And man, the mosquitoes they're definitely out in force this evening. They're here. And we just roll. We just work with it, right? What else can you do? You're not in control. Just learn to love them, as they say. I find you plant these at a planting depth about an inch deep. Look at all the worms in that soil. There's worms everywhere. The worms make the fertilizer, right? You don't need to buy fertilizer. Provide an environment that the worms are happy in, and they'll make the fertilizer and do all the work for you. They'll move the soil around. They'll increase the nutrients. There's a saying that there's more that comes out of a worm than ever goes into a worm, and over time I think you'll find that's pretty true, right? They eat something like a hay or any decomposing plant material, and it goes in the one end and comes out the other end something else, something that's very beneficial for your garden. It's basically making a kind of manure, but the most precious and amazing kind of manure. Alright, so we're almost done here. Just arranging this hay mulch into little mounds. I'll have to add some more on this end because I don't have enough. I'm going to bring this over. Okay, I got plenty in reserve. Always have more mulch than you need. There we go. Smooth that out. Smooth that out. See how I'm doing this all with my hands? No tools needed. This is no-till gardening, right? Nothing needs to be worked. Nothing needs to... this bed has not been touched since last fall. And here I am just plugging seeds in. That's the way it should be, right? I can't make it any easier. right? Doesn't get any easier. Now, I didn't discover this approach to gardening until I was in my 40s. I spent so many years wasting my time working the soil and doing all of that turning over and forking and spading and hoeing and all that foolishness. It's not only is it unnecessary, but it doesn't benefit the soil. The soil prefers to be sort of left alone like this. It prefers to just have minimal disturbance. Right? So, and that works fine with me because I don't want to work any harder than I have to. I got enough to do in the run of the day. I got a busy enough life. All right. Now we're down to this end here. I think I planted those. Just sticking those in with my thumb. You see how easy it is. You just put it on the end of your thumb and jam it in. Beans, peas, things like this, that's how you plant them, in my opinion. Just going to plant a few here. And some of these will get taken out by slugs, and you will, if you're doing it this way, you will need some sort of solution for slugs. I'm not going to lie to you. But the fact that you can just stick them in the ground and leave them like that, totally worth it. Put a little bit of mulch here on the end. That's it. That's all it needs. Alright, so that's just a quick video on planting beans under heavy mulch. How to do that. I'll leave the soil in the rows where I planted the beans exposed for about a week or so, and once they're up a couple inches I'll just move it back in. In fact, the wind and the rain will just, when you hill them up like this, I mean, these mounds are about, I don't know, about 4 inches high. They'll just have a way of finding their way back down anyway, from wind and rain and stuff like that. So you'll find that the part where you expose the earth, the two mounds will just sort of find their way back together anyway, and remulch the exposed soil anyway on their own. Again, doing all your work for you. So one more advantage of using a heavy mulch in your garden. And it doesn't matter what kind it is, whether you're using leaves or hay like I am here, or seaweed, or leaves, or wood chips, or pine needles, or really whatever you can get your hands on that's organic in nature, that will break down and that worms like to eat. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Beans, mulch, easy. One of the best things about summer is when the beans start appearing in your garden and you can start eating beans all the time. I love it. So I hope that was helpful, gave you some good ideas. If you haven't planted beans before, I would give it a try. And if you're apprehensive about trying it with a mulch, believe me, it works great. It's very easy. So I hope you found that helpful. And if you did, please share, subscribe, and check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.